think the best thing I ever did was say this dream out loud to the people who care about me the most. And when you're stuck, you raise your hand.
Having someone that can be there with you to navigate that without any sort of judgment.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Whitney. This is the Use Your Fear podcast.
So we do high-low buffalo. This came from Whitney and her family. Her son came up with it. So they'll just sit around the table and talk about what it was their high recently, what was their low.
Nice.
And then buffalo is what was unexpected.
Okay.
So Whitney and I will do ours. And then we'll go back to you at the end and you'll talk about the experience of recording the podcast. What was your high, low, buffalo?
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So Whitney, I'm gonna put you on the spot first. What's your high?
What is my high, low, and buffalo? So I would say my high, and you guys won't be able to see this, but I took Michelle to do some Goodwill shopping because I'm obsessed with Goodwill shopping. And I got this amazing Nicolas Cage t-shirt.
Oh.
And on the back it says, "I'm back. Not that I went anywhere." Definitely my high. I would say my low. Well, this is a huge mess right now. I've just been dumping everything out, trying to find all my stuff. So I have a lot of cleaning to do whenever I'm done with this. And then my buffalo. I would say my buffalo was how much my animals missed me when we were gone for only 2 nights. And my husband was like, "They're so angry at me right now."
So cute.
And as soon as I got home, like this morning, I woke up and I had the puppy like laying on me and a cat laying on me. And then the other cat like right next to me. And I'm trying to like hug my husband. And then the dog's like trying to get into the hug too. So it was fun.
Yeah.
He's very needy.
Dog cat
Yes.
person.
It was a smorgasbord of animals.
Taking my word there. I heard that.
I am. So, Michelle, what about you? What is your high, low, and your buffalo?
Yeah, my high is, I'm still riding high off of that Goodwill shopping spree. I mean, I'm currently wearing, I know it's a Halloween shirt, crazy, but my favorite part of the year is the second half of the year. And not necessarily that Halloween is my favorite holiday, but just the back half of the year is always something that brings me a lot of joy. Just all the holidays, all the celebrations, nice. Back to school, like all the energy is just it's my favorite part. So back half of the year, yay! I'm in my Halloween shirt, so we're rocking and rolling. And then my low is, oh my gosh,
your AC not working.
My AC not working. My AC not, and then not realizing when you said in studio that you meant this studio, and so like I was like quick, and I was like cleaning stuff. So I was like whatever path she takes is like it's great, and so I give off a better first impression of my own house, and I know you wouldn't care anyway because you're just one of those like most welcoming people, but I still like in my own mind. So before you got here, I cleaned everything.
The flight of the bumblebee.
And I did it, and it was the smoothest ever. Like, and that was my buffalo. Is the fact that I was able to set all this up, except for the microphone part.
I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So that was my buffalo.
I like it. You're learning that. What is it you always said about me? The chaotic, the beautiful chaos.
Yeah, she's the chaos. I'm my own form of chaos, but I'm very like everything for the podcast I got ahead of time. Like I've had this equipment since 2020.
Oh wow.
But then I never,
Executed.
it was like, okay, now what? Like I tried to like learn editing even, and it came across as Greek to me. And like hooking up microphone, I was just like, I have no idea how to do this. And Whitney has always been the person to just bust out like the Kool-Aid guy through the window. Like, and she's like, I'm here and we're gonna do it. And
Oh yeah.
oh yeah. It was funny, every time I would move an apartment, you know, she would come in and help me hang stuff up on the walls because I was too scared to even put a nail in the wall and mess things up. You know, so
Let
I
me
was,
take that wall.
yeah, I always have the things to do things, but then when it comes to doing it, I'm too scared to do it. And she's like, I got you, and she does it. Yeah,
You know, the execution also is important.
yeah, exactly. We're a good yin and yang for
Aw.
sure. So, where was I going with that? What happened?
I don't know, but welcome back to the Use Your Fear podcast.
Yes, welcome back to the Use Your Fur podcast, where we talk about people who are lifing and all of their experiences. Nobody is alone. I've realized that more than ever recently, and so we just want to talk to the voices in our own backyard and get perspectives and highlight stories, because I think every story we resonate with. And our listeners have too, actually. So it's been cool, like the messages I'm getting. So we're so excited for you to be here.
I'm happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. So DJ Rosez, we met advocating for the community. I was able to help her with a restaurant company that I worked with, secure some donations and raffle prizes, and our friendship has bloomed since then. You are just an amazing person, amazing DJ who I still don't know when do you sleep. But if you want to give the audience kind of more of your spiel.
I can give a quick intro.
Yeah.
So my name is DJ Rosez. I'm a Puerto Rican-based DJ here in Houston, Texas. And I like to phrase it that I like to bridge like nightlife and community aspects together. So,
and you do that every day.
Every day.
You do not stop. And you just got done traveling, doing pride events throughout the country.
Yes, which has been really insightful. So as I mentioned, I'm queer, right? And so something that has really resonated with me is like the amount of lesbian bars that there are in the US. There's less than 30.
In the US?
Yes.
Is for real?
Yes. There's less than 30.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So a lot of them like queer bars or mainly like gay bars, but like sapphic or lesbian bars.
Yeah.
Less than 30. We're starting off right.
What? I'm like shocked right now.
I would like to say that I've been to one in Dallas. I don't remember the name of it.
Sue Ellen's?
Yes. And then I lived over in the neighborhood, and we called the Kroger right there, the K Roger. And one of the girls that worked with me, she had to go find her roommate at C6, I think, and it was Les Fest, and we went over there, and it was such a big party celebration. Oh my God, it was just, the energy was so fantastic. I loved it.
Queer folks are, and I mean that's a historical thing too, you know. But yeah, there's less than 30. So I've been very grateful enough that this year I've gotten to see and explore other sapphic bars in the US. So, for example, I've gotten to make a really good partnership with Henrietta's in New York City, which is great, right? Then I got to go to DC. I visited a friend in Baltimore, but then we went to DC, and then we got to see, I think, As You Are, which is another sapphic bar in DC. I'm going to Sue Ellen's in September, and then I have a great partnership here in Houston with Houston's Lesbian Bar Pro. So I think what really resonates me with these sapphic bars, like I mentioned, we have very few of them.
Yeah.
It's also showcasing that queerness is a spectrum, that we come with a variety of experiences and ethnicities. And if we're going to keep it real, right, a lot of lesbian representation we've had for many years was just white.
Yeah.
So being able to go to these bars and play and resonate with some like other types of music, particularly like Latin, that has really resonated a lot. And I'm just grateful, grateful to do these things, grateful to represent my full self, right, in these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully authentic. I can't even imagine you like being anything else.
So I love that you said like you thought about this in COVID, that you thought about this podcast in COVID. I resonate a lot with that because I was doing D&I consulting for a school firm here in Houston. And I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life. I thought that was my long-term goal. I got my bachelor's, my master's, and for the longest, I wanted to, amplify businesses and be very inclusive. So yeah, I study like marginalized communities, not to say that I'm like this perfect person that knows every marginalized community. Exactly. Yeah. But it doesn't hurt to know about other communities that you don't belong in.
Right.
So I thought that. And it wasn't until COVID that, I was working from home. And then they gave us a stipend. Mm. And the stipend was about, spending it, right? And I remember watching this news media outlet that said, for you to have the best mental space while you're locked in is to work out and then have a hobby. So I was working out heavy. I know it doesn't look like it, but at the time I was. At the time.
Same girl.
At the time I was working out very often because I had the time, right? Locked in.
Yeah.
And then I went to YouTube and I saw this ad that said, learn how to DJ with X amount of money. So I was like, you know what? I got the money. Clearly it says what controller and what speakers to buy. Let me teach myself. So I got it. And let me tell you, when people think that these hobbies are easy, lies.
Yep, lies.
Yeah.
Pure lies.
Yes. I bought this, and like similar how you said, right? You're like, I don't know how to plug this stuff.
Yes.
I got the controller, I got the equipment, and I remember seeing all like at the time there weren't that many like TikToks or social media pages on DJs. Like if you knew a DJ, then yeah. But I thought I didn't know that you have to download the music.
Right. Yes.
So I bought this equipment and thinking like, oh my transitions are gonna eat, and no. Just no. I really thought that I was gonna, do my big one. But obviously you have to learn the craft, you have to know what does well. And I'm very happy that I'm able to see some fruits of that labor.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you learn that? Like you had to download. Like, were you at a party?
So
in the middle of it, or?
So I think when you start with a particular DJ program, they'll have like some sample songs. Mm. But I really resonate with Latin music, and that's why I was like, "There's no Latin songs here."
Right.
So yes, so that's when I was like, "There's different ways to download music, and you have to learn where you can access it." And that's all a learning curve. And I think that we're in a society where we want things so fast.
Yes.
We want the results so fast.
Yeah.
And we see people being successful from one day to another through social media, but that is not the longevity. And that does, if you're not prepared for it, then it can cause a downfall. But yeah, so it took me a while, but I got all my songs.
That's awesome. Has music always been a part of your life? It sounds like it has been. And you're from Houston, like born and raised.
Born and raised, man.
Yeah.
I have, let me see, I have the city of Houston tatted right here on my Instagram. Born and raised. But right, I'm like very Houston. Yeah. But it has music. So I think that music has been maybe on the background. I can't say that my focus has always been music. Like I was in dance, not in dance school, but I was in dance classes. I was in choir. And I mean, one of the biggest things for DJs to keep like a beat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So little did I think that later on, like those things will make a difference because you don't want to also put two different keys together that don't mesh well, you know. But I mean, I really enjoy giving people a nostalgic feel, especially now that I think with social media, we're giving exposure and awareness to people that have felt isolated with their identities.
Yeah.
So being able to play to that crowd has been so wonderful. And I get to play, you know, music that I used to hear when I was in elementary or, you know, in middle school.
Like what?
I mean, like my parents really grew up with cumbias and they grew up with like bachata, merengue, stuff like that. That I feel didn't really resonate when you were going to an American school.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, I don't know, I don't know if it felt like taboo, but it just didn't feel like we were represented, right? Because when I went to middle school, they were telling me about listening to the radio, right? And then listening to American music. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, for example, that like NSYNC was such a big deal.
Wow.
I know, living here, right? And that just shows you that like you can be in the same city, but the way that you grew up can be distinctive.
Yeah.
Right. And so my parents do come, they're immigrants. They came here for a better future. And I mean, they didn't know English for a bit. So they taught us what they knew. And that's like the relative music that I mentioned. And I didn't really get to be accustomed with American music until I got into middle school.
Yeah.
And that's when like it was big shit. That's when I was able to buy my own MP3 player.
Yes.
You know? So that's when I was able to learn about artists like Justin Timberlake, et cetera. So it's so crazy, right? You're in the same city and now two different alternatives. Realities.
Houston especially, it has just so many pockets. And one time I compared it, like it's like the New York of Texas.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because it's just a smorgasbord of cultures. You know, there's Chinatown. There's there's so many different pockets, and you can get every single cuisine under the sun.
Which Houston is slept on. Okay, I think
Yes.
it's completely slept on. Yes, I need more folks to like put respect into Houston because yes, it is a melting pot of all types of folks. I think it's the fourth, like, besides being the fourth largest cities, one of the most diverse.
Yes.
I know that. So
we find the most diverse.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And for people to still be like, hey, there's nothing out there in Houston. Yeah, there is.
So much.
There's plenty of folks, plenty of food. You can just be like, I'm in the mood for Nigerian food.
Done. Ethiopian food. Done. Like,
Done. Like even Cuban. Done. So I don't know. Houston is definitely something.
For sure. And like I don't hate me, but I'm originally from Dallas, the Dallas area. But when I moved to Houston, it was like I could breathe. It was like I immediately felt relaxed. I immediately felt at home. Everybody around me was like, welcome here. Like it was the most welcoming community that I had ever experienced.
You know, listening to Latin music. I work in kitchens, so I am around that's what I'm around. Those are my community is, you know, people from, you know, Mexico, from Argentina, from Puerto Rico, from, you know, just different Latin nationalities. And I feel like that's something that's always been a big piece of that community is music and food. I mean, food. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Latin food. That might be my favorite thing in the entire world. But even just like the idea. And I'm a chef, so you know we can cook up some stuff together sometime. But I just love that culture so much, and like with the food and the music. Like I feel like it goes together so much.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that food is super important to us. Food is universal, right? Food is a love language in itself. And we resonate with the music for sure. I think that when you mention kitchens, I'm like, dang, a lot of employers or employees actually in most kitchens are brown.
Yes.
Yeah, like you would think you're going to Italian restaurant, and all of a sudden you're like, dang, they're brown,
Mhm.
you know? And so from, if we're gonna be completely honest, I think aside from loving our culture and loving what we have cultivated, I think it's also putting respect into what's going on right now.
Yes.
And that some of your favorite food, man, is gonna be, you know, people come here, like the vast majority of people, the immigrants that come here, is looking for a better future, like anywhere else. So it's very unfortunate that they're just being used as scapegoats
Yes.
in this political climate, as if this country wasn't built
On immigrants. Yeah, no,
We're all immigrants.
my great grandfather came in from Italy, and
Ooh.
I have his certificate for when he like came into
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah.
And so like that's always resonated with me is that, people come from other places
Yes.
to make a whole new life, and what guts that has to
Absolutely.
take. Like,
When you think about it, some of these people were in their 20s
Yeah.
that left their country with absolutely almost nothing sometimes to make something here. And that's, we think, again, to the theme of what this is, we think that's fearful, right?
yeah,
But they use their fear completely to make something out of it, to have a better future. Because in other countries, they're not able to be themselves, or they don't have the resources to succeed, right? And if there's, I think we have all the right to succeed. We have all the right to have a happy life,
yes,
right? So yes, when I was in New York City, I went to the MoMA, and there was this one piece that was incredible. It was Uncle Sam basically. Oh no, it was an indigenous person basically saying like, "And who's the immigrant, you pilgrim?" And it was just so true.
yes, yes,
So,
yes.
you know,
Our whole infrastructure is built on immigration. That's why our population has grown, is because of immigration. And
it's unfortunate they're getting into scapegoat about like violence and crime when crime has always existed. Right?
always, yeah,
You can be in the most polished neighborhood and there is a likelihood of crime, but it's easier to target the most vulnerable groups.
it is. They don't have as loud of a voice as
Yeah, and when you're telling them that when they have any ability to talk, they can be dumped out, that's so unfortunate, For lack of a better terms, they're just being horrendous with human rights and whatnot. And it's just so unfortunate. I never thought we would be in such a chaotic state.
I never thought that either.
Going in reverse right now
Yeah.
for human rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
We celebrated Pride this year, and I was like, wow, gay marriage got legalized a couple of years ago. Would it be legalized in this current state?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
It's just mind blowing to think that it felt like we were going, a little, not perfect, but a little going forward. And I don't know. I think the moment that you give folks like a platform to just be cruel and mean and inhumane, it just goes downhill. So yeah, but that's where we're at.
I know. I hope, because if you look at like history, right, and like the civil rights movement and how it got worse before it got better.
Yeah.
And so that's where my heart is. It's like I hope that this is our worst before it gets better and progress is made. Because progress isn't a straight line.
No, it's not.
So that's my hope for the future, because I couldn't imagine like the disruptions that are happening, the people that are being locked away right now for no reason. Like they're not even criminals. If you actually look at the statistics behind it, and there's people getting picked up literally in court. They're in process of doing it the right way, and they're still getting
which
sued
is
death.
insane. You get this one day that you're supposed to not have any fear, and then they're feeding you to the line. It's completely absurd that we're in this space. I don't know. Hopefully, and it's just 6 months, right? It's just 6 months.
I know. And I think that's why it's important for like voices like yours to make sure that we lift to the rooftops.
Yeah, absolutely. Try and find ways that we can still provide. Okay, so I really got I took the sport class in college, right? And one of the most moving things that they made us do is they made us watch a film on the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Right? And which I highly recommend for folks to learn about that history because that was wild.
It was absolutely wild.
You know, talk about the government not giving hope.
Right.
It's letting these people die. Why? Because they're gay.
Mhm.
Crazy. But what a lot of these folks did, right? It's so unfortunate. They would bury their friends, but then to find joy, would join each other at a bar to be able to celebrate the life that they you know. So, like you mentioned, the big theme, right? Also, imbalance.
Yes.
You can't let these consume you. So, I think that's when I'm able to come in, right, and to provide spaces where you can have some joy, right, and still be in community.
Yeah. I feel like nothing is more freeing than like turning down the lights, pumping up music, and just being with friends and being carefree. Like you just get transported to a different place.
Especially when you're able to be in community, right? That like when you are with your friends that you've been long term, like right here, it feels like you are unstoppable.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point.
It's true.
When did you know that like DJing was more than just parties?
I think at the root, so when I started DJing, I saw that it was a very male dominated industry. And I've always been inspired by Megan Thee Stallion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
And the reason I say that is because Megan Thee Stallion has made it very clear that her music is for the baddies. The music is for empowering women, right? If we're gonna make it more professional, her music is to empower women, whatever shape, size, whatever they're going through, and to have that self-confidence, right? When they walk into their building, they are that girl or whoever
they're that bitch. Let's
yeah. Yeah. So that's who she makes music for, right? And the daydams and like the communities that may not feel 100%, right? I think her music is made for every person that feels I don't know, unconfident and whatnot. And that has been her route. So for me, I always felt like, dang, the industry is so male dominated that they need to focus so much on the girls and the daydams and the gay community as well, because that's what runs nightlife. There's no nightlife without women.
Yeah.
And so when I first started DJing, one of my first interviews, I mentioned like I would just want the girls to feel like baddies. I want them to feel like they're it at those events. And so that's when I knew that I could curate things that elevate people's community and confidence.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, you're good.
And it's been such a journey because, like you mentioned, COVID was 5 years ago.
5 years ago. It's wild.
That's insane.
Right. Right. It just feels like when I say like, oh yeah, I've been DJing since COVID. It's not
a couple years ago.
It's not anymore. It's half a decade.
I swear I was just in my 20s.
And you can also do a lot with nightlife, right? You can create fundraisers. You can do so much more because what you have that other people may struggle in having is an audience. Even if that's for that moment. You have a group of individuals right there. What can you do with that? How can you elevate their existence?
Yeah.
So honestly, it's been cool just to see the growth. We've been partnered up with Johnny's. Have you been to Johnny's?
No.
I recommend it. I think that you would really, we're going to fuck with their values.
Yeah.
Johnny's is a dope cocktail bar.
Okay.
Their bartenders are well done, as in they have several hours to execute your cocktail the way that you want it. But they're in the Heights, and so the owner has been super nice in trying to also cultivate a space where he feels like people that feel they're marginalized can come here too.
Yeah.
And take a little quick drink.
Yeah.
And so we teamed up and we did this event called the Pusa Shop.
Uh-huh. I think I saw it on your Instagram.
So,
oh my God.
which if you haven't had pupusas, I highly recommend it.
Are we talking about the food pupusa?
Yes, I'm Salvadorian, so I got to plug it in.
Yes.
But what they ended up doing is that we teamed up, we did a little cumbia party, and with every pupusa sold, all the proceeds would be going to a nonprofit that focuses on undocumented immigrants. So we raised $1,000 just in that, you know.
Yeah.
And he also was able to provide training to their employees if something were to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're right.
Yeah, more than ever.
Yeah.
But things like that, you're like, okay, that's feasible,
Yes.
and that's still fun.
It's amazing the spaces that you're creating that are just safe and especially for queer immigrant communities where I think you know that I would imagine you have to be hyper vigilant living today and to have that space where you can put that
Art.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. I know that is affecting a lot of folks. I know a lot of folks aren't even wanting to go outside anymore to even show up to work. I have friends that work in the school system, and they're like, dang, their parents don't even want to put their kids up.
Education department.
And
Oh
so
my gosh.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
All these things. I mean, even a lot of businesses that rely a lot on like immigrant money. Unfortunately, you're like, dang, we're thinking.
Yeah.
I go do my taxes at a Salvadoran business, and so a lot of undocumented folks go do their taxes there, and they're just scared.
Sorry, my whole body just like had chills.
It's unfortunate, you know.
It is like I've like heard stories from my grandfather about how Italians were treated back in the day, and the Irish, and to you think that we would know better.
Yes, but then when people keep reading these like MAGA motherfuckers, it's just very unfortunate because again, I think when you come with an open mind, right, even if you're thinking, which is so important, right, you shouldn't put someone's existence through an economic lens, right? They're people, right? But let's say a finance firm, right? Even if you're thinking about money wise, it would make sense to have immigrants here, but they're not even listening to that.
Yeah.
They're just seeing people as others, as like, I'm never going to go through the hardships that they go through.
Yeah.
They don't belong here. They harm X, Y, and Z, which is completely untrue. And it's just, unfortunate that this type of mentality is being spread. And then you have podcasts that are spewing all this nonsense to these upcoming men. And so it just is a cycle. I thought that with the boomers when they were gone,
Right.
we were gonna be fine. But it seems like we have a new generation of folks that are just as completely misguided as we've had in the past.
Well, I think it's playing to the fear. Like that's the biggest thing is what's the next headline? Winnie, was it you where you read something? It was like a headline that was misconstrued.
Well, because people are living
Probably.
on
I mean, there's so many things like in the current state, like they write headlines on fear and stuff. I remember, reading, I think it was, a headline over some of the big ice raids in California. And one of the ones that I read was about a strawberry farm. And so I brought it up to my husband because he's very big on, reading the news and stuff too. And he's like, no, it was a marijuana farm and there were kids there too. And I was like, okay, let me look a little bit more into it. There was also a strawberry farm that didn't get raided, but they all left because they were afraid they were going to get raided. So there's just so they can rewrite the story to make it sound. So they were like, oh, this strawberry farm got raided, instead of, so just creating that fear that everyone's like, oh my God, strawberries are going to cost so much money. I read an article the other day, and again, I don't have the full background on it, but there was a gentleman that had lost his green card and was at an appointment. He lost his wallet and his green card was in it, and he went to go get a new one with his wife, and they took him and detained the wife until their kid could come and get the wife, And they didn't hear from him for a month. They couldn't figure out where he was. And he had a green card. And then just even working in the kitchens that I work in, I talk to so many people that have been undocumented or have had to go through the process to get documented. And we do not make it easy in the US to get it through that process. And it's expensive.
Yes.
And a lot of the people that are coming into America are here for a better life, to send money back to their families. They're not here to spend $10,000 just to get a documentation to be able to work here. Like, we need to make the process smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have MAGA people in my life, and that's another reason why this podcast exists, is because I don't think it's about politics. It's just about having an open dialogue and communication.
Yeah.
And I think both sides will be like, fuck them, you know,
I
they're
think it's completely hard though when people, I don't know if they know, I don't know where they're getting. We're going to talk about the argument, right?
Right.
You're getting your reliable information.
yeah, it goes both ways.
Yes, but I think the problem is when someone is actively saying, right, it actually has been, you know, apprehended because he has so many counts, you know, someone that has made fun of disabled folks, someone that has created such harm in what they like, they basically have hateful speech. And so it's kind of hard to have a conversation with folks that aligned with that, because it means that they voted for something in which your existence wasn't cared for.
Yeah.
Which I get it too. I mean, I have some MAGA members in my family too, which is very unfortunate. But I've tried to have those conversations and saying, like, how can you do that, or how can you be part of that if they don't even want us here, you know? Right. So it's like that cognitive dissonance. I think some people in this case vote in that way because they aspire to be white, you know, or they think that it's not going to affect me, or they think that, you know, by being enlisted would save them from some sort. But unfortunately, right, I think in the state that we're in, with police brutality and the massive ICE raids, they're not going to say, you know what, you voted MAGA, we're going to keep doing this.
No.
You voted MAGA, we're going to make sure that no cop hurts you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the existence that we have is very political.
Yeah.
And so how we show up plays a major role in how we're going to be treated.
Yeah.
So that's why it can be a little disheartening to have the conversation with these folks, because they feel, in a sense, not superior, but in a sense that they wouldn't be hit with the struggles that people are facing right now.
Right.
Just because they voted that day. But if there's anything that I've learned about the Cheeto Puff, is that he has no loyalty to anybody. He was like buddy with Elon Musk, and then
that blew up.
Now he's trying to say, Elon, get out. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
Here.
With the Einstein,
It's hard because we need leadership now more than ever, and it feels like there's just Twitter wars right now.
it's like a
on.
pawn.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that also with the presidency, it made it seem like anybody can run for office. Not discouraging or discrediting anyone that wants to run for office, but there should be some at least requirements.
More than money.
Yeah, more than just the presence that you have.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you would think. I don't know. Growing up, I felt like, man, for you to run for office, you should have X, Y, and Z. And now it seems like, oh, you could be a reality star.
Yeah.
Be the president of the country.
I know. I did not expect, like, growing up as a child and having taken government classes and, you know, thinking like, what are the, you know, the standards and decorum for like the government, and like we impeached a guy for getting a blowjob in the Oval Office. But, like, I mean,
we got a felon.
Yeah, 34.
Crazy.
And I know the argument. Like I can right now hear my friends who are MAGA be like, well, you know, what about the crime that was happening? What about, you know, the people that were impacted? And I'm like, the system was broken 100%. And, but there's ways about it. It's not gutting out all of the government programs. If there's actual fraud and abuse, which they're saying, they're uncovering now that that was all mostly lies. Not to say it was perfect, but anytime you take over a situation, you don't just gut it. You have to immerse yourself in it first before you actually know what to fix first and understand it.
Yeah. I also think that you can't rely that the president is going to fix everything.
No,
you know?
it's not realistic.
It's a system.
Yeah.
It's a system of implementing things to, you know, have an outcome.
I really want to talk about, I'd asked you what your fears were, and I was shocked.
That was my fear?
Yes, that you're like the fear of not doing enough.
Yeah.
And you're the most, you do the most out of anybody that I see out there. And but not just like from your video screen and from, you know, sharing on Instagram, you're actually physically there with communities.
I think why I said that is that I think there's always ways to do more. And that's why I think we have our balance issue, right? Like, when do I take time for me? And when do I take time for my home, my family, my loved ones? But I don't know. It just feels like in this state, what more can I do? You know? I can use my platform as much as I can, but it just feels sometimes
falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, or it feels as if, when is the change gonna happen? The change comes sometimes very slow. Yeah, and one day we're gonna look at this and think about the things that we did for our community and how we were combating this, you know, like hearing so much about the civil rights movement that in all aspects, right? I am a big fan of Angela Davis. What an amazing woman. If there is a historical figure that I'm like, wow, Angela Davis. I even have Angela Davis portrait in my house because that is an incredible. You telling me she was part of the Black Panthers? The FBI was looking for her, and she was caught. You know, they were asked like, "Do you want a lawyer to represent you?" And she said, "No, I'm gonna represent myself." Then they recommended her to like tame her afro, and she did it. She represented herself with the biggest afro ever and was set free. And with that in mind, it just feels like, wow, there's such history in how we received, how folks received, right, their civil rights. And to know that so much labor, effort, in an apologetic self, how they came about unapologetically themselves, is very, very moving.
Yes. Especially from someone who says, "I'm sorry" every 5 seconds. And that's, I grew up in a town that was mostly Hispanic. So like Christmas time was the best because there were tamales everywhere. But I just loved, I've admired other cultures so much because I feel like when I'm in, you know, a space in my own community, it just sometimes it feels a little straight laced. We can't, you know, we have to like act a certain way, we have to present a certain way, and
interesting.
And so it's so nice. Like I said, when I moved to Houston, I immediately exhaled, and just took a breath and felt like I didn't have to get dressed up to the nines and have makeup and hair and everything anytime I wanted to like go out and just enjoy myself. You could just come as you are. And I felt like I was, you know, I was met where I was. And I think living in Houston, I've been here for 12 years, has helped my growth as a person. Just being around more diverse communities and what I learn every single day. And
I think change happens when you know someone. Unfortunately, you're right. It should be
Yes.
because we know about these things and we should be taught about empathy. But the reality is, right, is that when you know a narrative, then you may not think of it as a taboo or a fashion, right?
Yeah.
So the statistic, I think we're going to go really deep, but the statistic is that 1 out of 3 women get an abortion.
Yep.
So for many people, it sounds like taboo, but when you hear those stories and the narratives and why they did those things and why abortion may seem like the only solution or reliable source, then people are less likely to view it as taboo.
Right.
So yeah, 1 out of 3.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that statistic. I've gone through an ectopic pregnancy. So I mean, if you look at my medical records, it says technically it's an abortion. Like that's what it is. And that's what hurts too, is having people in my life that are like, oh, nothing really changes from, president, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. Have you lost rights recently?
Yeah.
And because if that would have happened to me now, it would make a completely different story.
Accessibility and everything.
Yeah.
But that statistic carries so much meaning because people have this presumptuous idea that like, oh, they just, murder babies, which is
That's not
that's not how it goes.
You can't abort a fetus after it's born. Like, I'm sorry.
It is also a lot of emotional investment in
Oh my gosh.
psychosis. I mean, lack of better terms, just like
Yes.
very emotionally invested experience for folks. It's not easy for a lot of people to choose that,
No.
but and sometimes it happens naturally, so there's a lot of weight to that statistic, but narratives do shift people's opinion.
Yeah. Unfortunately, comes that, the experiences of, whether they experienced it or they just can't put themselves in that position until
it happens or to a friend of them, or when there's a situation that was very harmful and the person didn't want to have the aftermath of that, so it's again, statistics like that are very important because those narratives is what shift these people's minds. All of a sudden they're like, oh, it's not because again you wanted to murder, it was because maybe the baby daddy didn't want to be in the picture, or they don't have enough fun money, or they live with their parents, or if worst case situations, but maybe they're a minor.
right.
So there's so many instances like women or people who have the reproductive organs that go through these things. Unless you're not living it, then you won't understand it.
No. And being a woman, as I've gotten older, and Whitney can attest to this too, because we both are like experiencing perimenopause right now, and
It sucks.
and how you're like it changes everything from your hormones to how you think, to how you feel, to how you look, to, and just that much. And the majority of the research is on men.
Yes.
And
I need the norm to stop being men.
yeah.
Like even the seatbelts in the car.
Yes.
Men.
Yes, they are. They
I'm
are.
like below average. I need
Yes.
something for me.
Yes.
Like women are statistically shorter. We need more. And women don't get paid as much as men.
Yeah.
Like the moment that you're born into a marginalized community, again, like your identity is political because of the shit fucking face.
Yeah.
You didn't ask for this.
No. You just showed up and
Yeah, you think that we would want to enjoy our periods? Like,
No.
we didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for none of this.
my husband's like, I'm so glad you're the woman. I was glad. Like,
He would be a terrible woman,
he would be
FYI.
the worst.
You think you're high maintenance? He would be like 10 times worse.
No, But again, even shout out to all those folks who have given birth. Like that
Yes.
is
Oh my
a
god.
whole different monster.
For you, like you said, we talked about your fear of not feeling like you're doing enough, right? So how does that actually show up, would you say, in your work, your rest, how you view yourself?
When I feel like I'm not doing enough, definitely when you see all the news out there that hits so many different communities, right? And so it's like, am I doing enough for this community? What more can I do to uplift this community? So I think it's just hard to think that you can do it all, but you're human.
I was about to say, like, do you feel like you have to be everything to everyone?
I try to use my platform as much as I can, right, for marginalized communities, but I am just
Big responsibility.
right. Imagine the whole world on my shoulders. Not even like that.
Yeah.
You know, just I'm trying to be more gracious. I'm trying to.
So I'd say, how do you take care of yourself? How do you look out for yourself?
Well, I've been trying to definitely get more rest. I've been saying no to gigs that don't pertain me anymore. I think also within this year, something that's really resonated with me is being in spaces where I feel wanted. Simple as that. And so if I feel like the person that I'm working with is a little iffy, or that person doesn't align with my values, or I'm getting paid less than what my value is worth, then I'm completely saying no. Yeah. Which has cleared my schedule a lot more, and it's been great because I've been able to meet so many like-minded individuals outside from Houston. So sometimes it feels as if you can't, even let's say you can't find your community in your city. Venture out.
Yeah.
See what other cities are doing, which is so cool to see. So, for example, I'm Salvadoran, right? I love my culture. I got it tatted on me too. Mm-hmm. I love pupusas, and I love how my parents embedded me in this culture, right? Mm-hmm. What I found super cool is that in LA they have a Salvadoran Independence Day. It's a Salvadoran Heritage Night with LA Dodgers. Mm. So that's a bunch of people in LA just celebrating Salvadoran culture. And so I think when it comes to empowering the Salvadoran community, LA has a lot of that. So of course I flew out. Yeah. If my city is not really doing it, then let me see what they're doing and see what we can bring it here. Wow. So yeah, I think again, if you feel you're not seen, venture out and see what other cities are doing, what other folks are doing. Yeah. It's beautiful to see how other communities are really being there for themselves.
Yeah. And that's so cool. Like, it's so interesting to me that you are that kind of person who will go somewhere and be like, how do I bring this to my city? Yeah. I think that's not everybody thinks and feels like that.
I mean, I'm gonna call it, I want to manifest it. I want to be part. But the Astros is one of the biggest baseball teams in the US. We need a Salvadoran day too. Yeah, guys, man, if the Dodgers are doing it, if the Dodgers, man, I mean, they were really nice. They did a jersey, and the tickets weren't that expensive. Yeah. I mean, we do theme nights here in the Astros too. They do like Hello Kitty night, and you buy that. They have a specialized jersey, you know, and they did the same with the Dodgers. They gave us specialized jersey. Did I spend a bunch? No. I mean, I spent $40 for my ticket. Yeah. It was in nosebleeds, but I had the best time of my life. Yeah. To see my community be seen, man. Our flag is blue and white. So to see a sea of blue and white is so powerful. And I feel like we feel the same when we see, you know, if you're an Astro fan, if you see the sea of orange. That's so powerful. So yeah, I'm gonna manifest that. I want to be part of that. For real, because it's so cool to see. Yes, you know, I love being in Houston. Unfortunately, we are in the state that we're in. Like, we're in Texas. Yeah. And so there are other spaces in the country that are pushing hard, you know, and so we go there, get inspired, and then meet here, you know, so like to continue that momentum for our folks. Yeah. Because even, which is so sad, I've heard from some people in the North that are like, Texas got them for themselves. Texas voted for this. And it's like, there are pockets. Yes. That in the South that are not like that. There are pockets that are, you know, care about people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that way it gets wishy-washy like that. But no, I think you go to these cities, see what they're doing, and then come back and push for your community, push harder, you know.
That's yeah. No, my mind went to just lately, like the hill country floodings that have been happening, and you know how some people are like, oh, well, they voted for Trump, so
that doesn't mean that they deserve to.
No, nobody deserves.
I think okay, I think this is what you mean, like when it comes to both sides, right? It is unfortunate how people are voting, right? But that doesn't mean they're not worth a life.
No, yeah. A president serves both.
Yes,
viewpoints.
People are worth, right, a chance. People are worth just to live.
Yeah.
You know, so it's for someone to say like they deserve that's the part of also being part of this movement is to see themselves as humans. So,
100%.
So no, I mean I know plenty of people still were able to like help the hill country because those were also. If we think that way too, we're not acknowledging the communities that have no say, like the kids.
Yes.
Like so many kids were in camp
all over the country to go to these legendary camps.
And
been there for generations.
And they came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, nowhere. Like it was like 20. It went up 26 feet within an hour.
It went up 26 feet in 45 minutes.
Yes.
You can't do nothing with 45 minutes.
Yeah, in the middle of the night. On top of that. Yeah.
You can't.
So the last time they had a flood down in that area, it was the middle of the day. So they were able to evacuate.
Yeah.
But these kids were asleep in their whole cabin. Like there's stories of them waking up with water to their neck.
Yeah.
Like to their chin and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there was footage of some of the cabins actually getting pulled away, like in water. And you can see like the kids in the cabin, like about to float away.
Oh, the boys' cabin.
Yes, and
they all got saved in that one, I believe.
They did, yeah.
You climbed
the tree. Yeah, yeah. Like it's nobody deserves to be dehumanized.
I think that's also what we see within the prison system as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think the purpose of this, like if you're really believing in the movement, is that you believe in restorative justice as well, right? In that restoration.
Yes.
And so yeah, you see that all the time. So in El Salvador also we're known for I don't know if we're the second to largest prisons. Oh, I think we are the second to largest prison system behind the US. Mm-hmm. And so the way that the president of El Salvador has viewed prisoners, right? So it all started with gangs. El Salvador was known for gangs for the longest time. And yes, they were creating horrible crimes. When we went to visit El Salvador, my parents were like, don't visit that area. We're not going to visit that area. Right. So yes, there was a gang problem. The president comes in and he does a complete cleanup. So anyone affiliated with gangs goes to these prison cells. But these prison cells, they deny so many basic human rights.
Yeah.
There are smush with like no shoes, not like treated as horribly, right? And so there comes a balance to it. We mentioned the word balance.
Yes.
You can hold people accountable, but also most of the time people join into these reasons because they lack economical sources. They lack a community, they lack family. So in that sense, you would think, why are they in this place in the first place? Yeah, like address the issue at its core. But the president has made it even worse by denying them their human rights and viewing them as just other, which in some cases it could be the wrong day at the wrong time, and now is using allegedness as a form to put them in those prison cells.
Yes.
So I have a cousin who is like 20 something, and I got to visit El Salvador in February. And I got to play at a gay bar, which was a mind fucking itself.
I was about to say, that's like full circle.
Yeah, that was a mind fuck in itself. I couldn't believe that I was there. I couldn't believe that I was playing for a queer crowd. I couldn't believe that there was a queer crowd in El Salvador. But my parents have been super homophobic. So it was cognitive dissonance at its finest.
Wow.
But my cousin was telling me that with the current administration that they have in the country, mind you, right? He has affiliations with Mr. Cheetah by renting him that prison as well, right?
Yes.
And let's not forget the case that we had a couple of months ago when they were like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, you're not going to do that." And they never. It wasn't until a government official went to go visit this man at the prison cell.
Yeah.
But so my cousin comes, right? She's young, and she lives there. So I asked her up front, "What do you think about the presidential state?" Because a lot of American Salvadorians love this man. He calls himself the cool dictator. So I asked her, like, what do you think about this presidential state? And she said, well, number one, they haven't increased the minimum age. So the tourists are living their best life. The transplants are living their best life. But the locals were not surviving. And then she said, two, it is true that you can just be allegedly part of a gang and put you into a prison cell. She said, and she was so blunt. She is young, she's gorgeous, so she's dating.
Yeah.
Right? So she dated this one guy, didn't work out, so she dated another guy. So the first guy didn't like that. So the first guy called the cops on the second guy and said that, you know where this is going.
Yeah.
And said that he was part of the gang. Had no proof.
Yeah.
Just word of mouth, just locked him up. It still is locked up. Yeah. So yeah, talk about dehumanizing. I think that more empathy, right, could really be more helpful in this world. And seeing people as people. I know like that can be hard sometimes, especially when you think they've done harm. But I think that people still have a will to live, to be treated as humans. You never know why they do. You never know if a gang member was like, I'm gonna your family if you don't join.
Right.
So out of love out of your family, you join.
That was the only choice they had. Like maybe they were orphaned or something happened and that's the community that they found themselves in.
I completely agree with that. You just never know people's we're so quick to jump the gun.
Yeah, you're bad. I'm good.
Yeah. That narrative, but sometimes it's just a gray area.
Yeah.
I think that the prison system is also like it's biased,
Yeah,
you have like Brock Turner who raped an unconscious woman and served 3 to 6 months or something like that, 3 to 6 months. And then you have all these girls. I was just trying to remember her name and I looked it up. And it was article after article after article of teen girls getting multiple year prison sentences for murdering the man that raped her or sexually trafficked her.
Because if you are a man with money, you can get away with law and power. You can get away with a lot of things. But if you're a marginalized community, locked up, and you don't have those resources, this system
was all marginalized women.
Yeah. The system is made for them to make rich.
Yeah, prison is like supposed to be rehabilitation. I know, and it's not. And it's just hard to watch. It's hard to watch. It's hard to listen to people that you love and care about talk in a dehumanizing manner. And I try to again get curious with the person in front of me and ask, well, why do you think she did that, or why do you think she felt that way, or man, that sounds like she's having a hard time. And just opening up that door, I feel like has shifted some of my conversations that I've had. And I hope more of that happens. You said that your parents weren't open to the queer community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, are you a couple?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I think when it comes to that, like I mentioned, my parents are immigrants, so it comes with being so centered into their upbringing. Right? Anybody that was queer to them was like an other. And so I definitely grew up in a homophobic household. Like they did not see that as a correct way of living or understood that world. Is it the case right now? I think they're trying to be more open-minded. I think that my parents also had me, my mom particularly had me at a very young age. My mom had me at 17.
Wow.
Yeah. So she had me at 17. And so I think during those time frames, she was also reading herself.
She's a kid herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think what my mom has been trying to do, she's also, my mom is a Facebook girl.
Yeah.
So Facebook. There's been a lot more stories about trans people and queer people being like, I haven't talked to my parents in years.
Yeah.
And my mom was already ready. My mom has made it very clear that she doesn't want that for us. That she's still trying to be there for me. And so I've had the hard conversations with her too, and saying that I didn't choose this life. You know, I wouldn't think that people choose to be even more marginalized.
Right.
But I do have the clear conversations of if you're not gonna fully accept me for who I am, then I don't know what more can we bond in, because from my understanding as a parent, however your kid comes, however your kid turns out to be, the bare minimum is to love them. You know, so it's a work in progress. But yes, I grew up with my parents like saying very out there, outlandish comments about the queer community, and it isn't until you know somebody that those narratives change. But I think that's also been changing within the last 10 years. The exposure of queer folks has been immense. I think a lot of people are gay now.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, when I get on TikTok, another celebrity. You know, and I love that we have more exposure now than ever. And I think now kids are seeing that it could be feasible or possible. And I love that, because that would have been a little bit helpful for me.
If you're comfortable sharing your journey into coming out, if you are, you don't have to share about it. But
So,
I just wondered, but you know, with your parents, the things that they said, like that, I would imagine you probably felt shame.
oh, for sure. You know, literally, I'm brown. I'm brown as it could be. And I didn't learn English until I was like in the second grade.
Wow.
And so I was really embedded into Salvadoran culture. That's why I take so much pride in who I am and what we represent, our cuisine, our music. And again, it's not even showcased a lot in the Latin sphere.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, dang, I represent so many communities at the same time. But I mean, I knew I had this conversation with my mom too. She's like, how'd you know you like girls? I knew when I was 4. Do you ask straight people? Like, when did you know you liked?
When did you know you were straight?
Yeah, you know, I just knew when I was 4, I felt something special towards women that I just couldn't be explained. Or you don't know what to identify as that. You just know it felt like a tingling sensation. You know, it just felt nice. And as I started growing up, in middle school, I came out as bi because I felt like that was the step.
Acceptable,
Yeah. And it wasn't until my junior year of high school. And the way that I phrase it is like finding the perfect shoe size. And that shoe fits so nice, right? And it just does you so right. And for me, that's how I felt when I finally identified as a lesbian. But it just felt right. It just felt like, yes, this has been me the whole time. So my friends, they've been new. They could tell you that. She was like, oh, we've been new. That was no news for us.
It's about time.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, and what else?
Yeah.
The closet.
Yeah, we knew before you.
They probably did. But what I thought of, it really resonated with me at that time, was I was still living with my parents. And so I remember going to this queer like meetup, and they mentioned, if you're gonna come out, make sure that you have a place to land at, right? Just in case. And for the longest, I was like, man, I gotta make sure that I'm financially okay before I come out, because I would hate to, you know, completely do a left turn on where I thought my life was gonna be at.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, kudos to people that come out, even if they're not financially stable, that they believe that they need to be free and be themselves. Kudos to that, because I feel like I fell in that entrapment. And it wasn't until I finished my grad degree that I got a job, and I was making a salary, right? And with a salary, then you can afford an apartment. So I was able to live on my own. And when I started living on my own, by 3 months, I came out to my parents. But hopefully that's not
So
the case.
not till after college,
Yeah. I'm like, dang, all these people
right?
out, right? It seems more welcoming for folks to have queer couples at proms.
Mhm.
But I feel like when I went to high school, that there was very few of us. Yeah, I just feel like being queer was like not acceptable as it is right now. I mean, I felt like, damn, there was only 3 of us in high school. Like, for back in later terms, I don't think I had that much experience behind me. But yeah, I felt that way completely. I was like, there was 3 of us, and now that I play at a lesbian bar, there's like all these other folks from high school that are coming.
You're like, ah.
I was like, yeah, y'all left me out in the mud by myself.
Do you think that it was harder to have the conversation too, a little bit, not just because of, you know, the timing too, of there wasn't as many people coming out and saying that they're queer, but even culturally, do you think that played any aspect into it?
Oh, for sure. I think that it's scary to showcase yourself as who you are. And so if I'm correct, like even the possibility of getting fired from work was really real.
Yeah.
You know, so of course I don't know, because my high school I was definitely not. I was definitely not as queer. But that doesn't interfere with a job, right? You know, that doesn't, because it's school.
Right.
They shouldn't know.
Yeah.
It's a public school.
Yeah. They can't be like, nope, sorry.
Yeah. But honestly, for sure, because that means lack of resources, because it's not as acceptable. Being afraid of shame.
Yeah.
Being afraid of being ostracized. But if there's anything about the queer community, is that we have chosen family, and that sticks with us.
Yeah. No, for sure. And
Are there any, just since we're on the topic of being, you know, one, being in a marginalized, you know, being an immigrant family, being, even though you're born in Houston, but your parents weren't, and then being one of 3 that are queer in your school, like, what resources are there now, like, for kids that are in that?
yeah.
What I'll tell you, I had to do hella research to feel like, oh, that's the right term for me. I mean, I was watching vlogs, I was watching YouTube videos, and at the time, I don't feel like there was enough out there for anybody. I read queer novels. I just wanted to make sure that what people were like having shared was something that I could identify with. You know, but yeah, a lot of research.
Yeah.
But besides the research, I think that we have like an instinct feeling of knowing what feels right for you. That doesn't feel forced.
Yep.
For sure. What research did you do? Like, what were there any articles, publications, books, anything that you adjusted that you think made a difference?
I read a lot of queer novels. So hearing the stories about like 2 women like falling for each other. I also did watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I think that YouTube was just starting to rise. And so that meant like YouTubers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember somebody saying bisexual means 50-50, which actually is not true. That's not the term anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was that early 2010s.
Yes.
So they were like, bisexual is 50-50. And I'm like, this
Right side or left side?
We always want to put people in a box.
But the 50-50 working out.
It's gotta be 50-50. Right side is gay, left side is straight. Fine.
It was like 95.5. Like it was just so drastic. So after that, I just felt like, I just felt like the right term.
Yeah. I keep going back to, you said you waited till after college. You took the long way. You got a master's. You're like,
But you know what? I came out of there with no debt.
that's awesome.
Yeah, 2 degrees, no debt at all. So
How did that happen?
so I went to UHD, and so they have a lot of scholarships for folks. And then I went to UHCL. And I mean, again, I was able to get a bunch of financial aid. So
What were your degrees in?
so I studied psychology for my bachelor's, and then my master's is in industrial organizational psychology.
Shut.
Why you want to do it?
Yes.
And we're,
Shut up.
and we're having these conversations, and you should.
We are going to talk after
I think you should.
I'm nerd out over
I know.
the dynamics of work culture
Yes.
and how it comes to be and how people interact and how people get shut down and how
Yeah.
people get burned out and
Yeah.
how people succeed and how do you take people who are struggling to success, and I just nerd.
I love it. I think it's just a more humane way of looking at the workplace.
Yes.
Right. So, for example, during COVID, I was still in grad school, so we were learning in real time how retention was super important for the companies.
Yes.
And so, what were CEOs doing? The real ones that really cared about their coworkers, like their workers or their employees or their staff, took pay cuts.
Yep.
And that's when you know it's going to pay off in the long run because these people are going to stay with you.
Yes.
Things like that. So yeah, it was really cool to see in real time how COVID was affecting the workplace at that time and what workplaces were doing to make sure that their employees were in good hands.
That's so interesting that you say that because I've heard stories about, COVID was hitting and then
They got let go.
they would either got let go or they would hold on to them for now and not approve any vacation time because they knew they were out the door anyway. And it's just a why. Like I had a rough time during COVID. I got laid off twice. So it was just telling to see what companies were at the forefront of like no employee left behind. We're going to figure this out. And then the other ones that either like stayed quiet or shut down.
You can see that right now in the current state, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
companies that you never thought would be harmed are now facing, because at the end of the day, right, if you say that you're part of community, your community will have your back.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So when you disalign those values because you want to make some other people happy, and the community's not going to have your back, people are not going to want a shot.
Yeah. You have to support the community that supports you.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes.
Like otherwise they're not going to support you anymore. Like, yeah. I mean, if someone doesn't care about you, why would you
Why
stick
you're gonna
around?
spend money there?
Yes.
It's a simple thing that you would think these higher ups would understand. And I don't know, they get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a proven fact that if you are there for people in these turbulent times, your retention rate is gonna skyrocket, you know? And also you don't want to pay to retrain other folks.
No.
That's expensive.
It is so expensive. So expensive.
You'd rather keep them there.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a workplace that people quit every 2 years to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And that is measured. It's some businesses, they take pride in that.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in some of the companies I've worked for, where it's like, okay, what's our turnover? What's our retention? How are things going? And if it's high, then they'll actually go in and ask the questions. What's happening here? What's going on? And how can we find a resolution? And, is the leadership right for the community and things like that? So
is burnout affecting them?
yes,
Can we do that?
There's that too.
Some folks will be like, okay, cool, we'll pay for a gym membership.
Yes.
And that will like retain some folks too,
Yeah.
because it improves their immune system, improves their health, things like that. You don't want to think about.
I know. Yes. When you support the communities that support you, but also when you support the people that are literally doing the groundwork
Yep.
that, you know, maybe your idea created, but they're actually physically doing the work, and you have to invest in them and their well-being.
Yes,
It's just the right thing to do at the end of the day too.
I agree.
So when do you almost have to, I would imagine, learning when do you pause? When do you speak up? Like it's so hard to know that dance and where you're going to make an impact.
Yeah.
Can you share any experience from that learning experience?
That's it. You know, we got such a good flow. Where do I go? So I personally see, so anything that I've learned is that you cannot fight every battle.
Yeah.
Right. But what you do have, so you don't have control of what others do, but you do have control of what you do. And so I used to think that I needed to, if I saw someone with bad values or a DJ that I thought was doing like slimy shit, I felt like I needed to tell other people and be like, that's not a person. This person harasses other people. And that's when I realized in my life, sometimes there's no loyalty. And it could just behind their back. And so I've seen a lot of event organizers when I mentioned I don't feel comfortable working with this DJ because of the way that he's treated other women, and they still book him. So and then I've also seen folks that I know are not genuine to the cause make profit from the cause. And I used to think that like telling other people and outing their business, not outing necessarily to the public, but those circles who know not to engage in that. But it just makes you look even worse. Clear the noise, and you can't stop people from supporting other folks. So what you can do is continue to stay genuine. And that has been my go-to goal. And this, if people are not aligning with that way, then drift your own lane.
Yeah.
Drift that lane. At least this lane is authentic. It's real. It might take a little longer than said other path, but at least the growth that you're getting and the support system and what you're engaging in is raw, real, and for the community.
It's a long game.
Yep, and honestly, it's been paying off this year more than ever. I've learned to stop engaging in people's stories that I felt like seemed unfair to me. I just stopped listening to that noise, and then I started doing my own thing. And it's been very helpful this year. That's why you're like, you've been traveling. Yeah, I've been putting myself first.
Yes.
I've been putting my craft. I've been putting the messages that I have first, rather than like that, like comparing myself to all those things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's been fun to watch, like, you know, just from when we first started interacting and the places that you've gone and the communities that you've impacted, and then also seeing you stand up for the immigrant community and the spaces that you create. My jaw hits the floor every single time. And just, I'm always worried about you because you do so much.
Yeah.
And from someone who has done a lot and didn't fill their cup to have sustainability in that, what advice would you give for somebody who's, you know, go? Yeah. Tell me your secret.
You know what's been good for me?
What's that?
I know it's so funny because we think about aesthetics.
Yeah.
A Manny and a petty goes a long
Yeah,
way.
girl. That's real.
Manny, you know, if you're able to, right?
Right.
If you're able to, the previous
Tattoos.
Yeah. Tattoos, yeah.
Whitney has a ton of tattoos.
Yeah. So, what makes you happy? And for me, definitely when I've been thinking about my self-care, I actually had a conversation with one of the previous Pride System presidents, and she was checking in, right? And she was like, "What are you doing for yourself?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh," this was last year. So what are you doing for yourself? And I was like, you're doing this and this and that, and you're not. And I was like, she's like, I need you to stop doing that because these were her words. And I'll never forget that. I'm like, I'm really humbled that she said that. She said, because we need more of you for longer periods of time.
Yes.
So I don't need you to burn out now.
Yeah.
And so after she said that, yes, I love a mani and a pedi. And when I can, I love getting a massage.
Yes.
I stand up all day on my feet. I love doing that. So things like that, splurging in an outfit that I really like, or splurging in a, this is the funniest thing. I'm gonna tell you this, and we don't support this organization, but I was craving it. So I worked really hard last Friday I throw an old school perreo night, like it's like all type of old school music, right? From like reggaeton. And we had over 600 folks come. Yes, yes, that's the power of TikTok.
Yeah.
That's the power of being genuine. That's the power of community having your back.
Yeah.
And so it was a great party, but it just takes labor to execute your own events, right? And so what was so funny is that, I was very happy with the turnout of the event. It looks good on the bar. It looks good on me too. It needs space for the community. But I did all that work, and then this past Monday, I was like, I really want to make griddle.
Yeah. And you had to scratch the itch.
Yes, I was like, I worked so hard. I'm gonna get me a griddle for one. And it's like things like that, right? That you don't forget the joy. Like if you have the itch to do something, right? Like I'm going to Puerto Rico this year. I've been wanting to go to Puerto Rico.
Always wanted to go to Puerto Rico.
Let me tell you, I found a flight for $200 and something.
Yes.
A great place.
Yes.
Support their infrastructure and their economy.
Yeah.
Those bring joy, and I wouldn't change it for anything else. So treat yourself, not only in the way of just like your appearance, but if you have that itch, right, to maybe get a tattoo or eat a good food that you think is gonna be homey, do it. Do it.
I was just also like listening to your story. I've been someone who loves to find the quick fix, and I learned how that has been a detriment to me and my growth. How has fear pushed you to grow, and what has it held you back?
I think when it holds me back is not understanding when it's okay to speak up. Like, what are the repercussions if I were to speak up completely? I think that's when it's pushed me back. When it's pushed me forward, it's again when we see all these headlines and then when you hear loved ones that are going through this thing, it's real shit.
It's real life.
Yeah. It's not just something that we see on our screens. People are actively facing all of these hardships. And I think that's what pushes me forward.
So how does activism show up in your work? Like even during Pride season, for example. If you
Love it.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, identities are political.
Yes.
So I think me showing up into spaces is already like an act of righteousness or act of fighting back in that essence, because I don't hide who I am in any way. Like, you're gonna book me, you're gonna book all of me. But okay, we love Pride. We love Pride. But Pride is not just a month long, right? We are queer all the time. So I think that corporations could do more in the sense of just not feeding us and trying to sell things that month, right? Like
marketing.
Being with us the whole year, right? So when we're facing hardships, to be part of that too. But how does activism show up during Pride? I tend to be very intentional with the events that I participate in Pride, and it's just so beautiful to see like all these marginalized communities in different areas. Like I would never take the traveling aspect for granted, because you're seeing live in action communities enjoy from different parts of the country as a right. Like that is so beautiful. I think joy in itself is a form of resistance as well.
I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's almost like a full circle moment for
Yeah.
you because of where you came from, how you grew up, and
The full circle moment was playing at Pride Houston and being the headliner DJ.
yeah,
That was like, I had to lie to my parents to say that I was going to Pride. I had to lie. And then to make it there fully as myself and then representing the communities that I represent was in my hometown was such a surreal experience. You hear so much about the Pride parades, and so being in your hometown, that was such a roundabout and surreal moment.
yeah. You're giving me chills.
That money, that is some joy money can't buy.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, I was someone who had to get the quick fixes, but you can't grow from from that.
You gotta go through all the circumstances and obstacles. I've heard some of the most successful people say it, and I would do it again. The same
Yes.
way.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets? Did you do anything differently? No.
Everything is learning experience.
It is. And I've learned to enjoy it. I was always focused on the end result but no,
Not the journey.
yeah.
I think that's my issue.
Yeah.
If I'm being frank, I'm in a stage where I know what I can bring to the table, and I want to be known for the worth and value. But for me to get there, I have to be even more exposed in social media, in in the platforms. And so my friends are all like, don't worry, like you're gonna make it fit, enjoy what you're at right now and the growth that you've had, especially in this year, the amount of growth, right? And so I'd be forgetting, I think like, no, I want to be able to make it this big so that I can, work with the brands that I want, do all the things I need to do. But I'll get there.
Yeah.
I know I will, which was so real that the party that I've been throwing has had over 600 folks for the last 3 months. So that shows that there's something, right? And so that's just a reminder also of the community that I have and where it can go.
I've worked with influencers in my
Yeah.
career, and giving them support is so incredibly important in helping them grow, even if it's just like a little comment or a like or a
Yeah.
share. And now going into starting our own brand, it's just interesting to see where the support comes
Yeah.
from, like both family, friends, or
You
perfect
never know.
strangers.
Yeah. You never know where your social media can reach to.
Yeah.
When I first started TikTok, I started getting people from like Detroit, Canada. I didn't expect all that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely in the journey.
Just seeing or hearing the spaces that you've been in and what you've done with them and the pain and the growth, I've seen it just in, just the short time that we've known each other. And you talked about being more vulnerable, and what's the emotional cost of that visibility, especially as a queer Latina?
Maybe empowering. But I mean, we're all like being vulnerable in social media can always cause some commentary. But I've been fortunate enough to know that I haven't had a lot of hate speech of anything. I've connected with other queer brown folks, which has been so beautiful to see, right? So I did a panel at Pearl Bar, and they were asking me questions about joy and joy in nightlife. And something that I mentioned that still resonates is that, yes, I tend to focus a lot more on that, and that I can play whatever other genres are needed for what the crowd wants. But what's so cool is that when I am playing Latin music, there are queerness has existed forever. So it's so cool to see like queer couples who are much later in their life come up and be like, hey, I haven't heard this song in so many years. This is a song that me and my wife got married to. So thank you for playing it. And so those aspects, again, money cannot buy. So that's always very enlightening to hear folks share their love stories.
And those are the songs that you grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
and the
And
fact that you can continue that story. Are there any other sources that you can think of that might be helpful for someone else who's looking for support or insight, or is there a book? Is there another podcast?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What helps fill your cup?
So I will say this. I forgot to mention another way that I feel like that fills me up is to hang out with my community.
Yeah.
That again, I think that works tremendous, right? To unplug and then hang out with your best friends. Unplug and hang out with your friends. Unplug and hang out with your partner. You know, those are the moments that we just feel refreshed. And they don't just see you as an entity, but they see you as a person who you are.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's the best way to combat what we're facing through is finding community and really holding on to them. So I love the close friends that I have. I was able to curate my family, my chosen family, before I even started DJing. So it feels so great when I'm able to like log off or be able to catch a lunch
Yeah.
or catch a show, a movie.
Yeah.
You know, aside from this, I love to watch movies.
Yeah.
Like hardcore. Like I love that I've been able to invite to watch so many movie reviews. Little do they know, I love film.
Is there such a thing as like a DJ, like artist block on your end?
I
Like,
feel like some things can be a little repetitive.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you could think like, oh, this song works, but I'm like not creative with the execution. Because you know how it's gonna be a banger with the crowd, but not really toying with it. So yeah,
It's old faithful kind of.
yeah, it could just be a little repetitive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So how do you keep it fresh?
I try to get gigs that push me, or something that my mentor taught me. Right, if I'm traveling, I want to have at least a song that makes me sound different than the other DJs that it's probably that. So like preparing a set to what I'm doing, but that takes time too.
I was gonna say, how long does that take to prepare a set?
So personally, for me, I mean, I like, for example, let's say I did Orlando house party last year, so it's a tropical based party. So what I like to do is, if I know the theme, then I'll like to listen. I go on SoundCloud or YouTube, and then I'll find songs that I think meet the niche or the theme of the party, and I like sound closer to what I would expect. So maybe some different mashups, some different genres, and so that keeps it fresh.
How do you even sleep after a night like that? Like,
The drinks.
you live a very public life, and I feel like it's getting more public. Like you said, you're even more vulnerable. How do you like? Can you share any stories of how you felt so human behind the scenes that maybe other people would resonate with?
You know what I think is human? My height. Hey. I'm 4'9.5". And if you want something the same height as Harriet Tubman,
Oh, there you go.
like she did the Underground Railroad with these legs. And also the same height as Snooki. Like,
Right?
yes.
Yes.
I'm a short queen.
Short queens.
So yes, we all like, I can't even reach like the bottom. But I think a very human aspect, right, is that when people meet me and they be like, "Man, I thought you were taller," and I'm like, "I know, my personality gives huge, you know, my charisma is pretty huge, but the height it was limited." But no, you know what? Great things come in small packages. So,
What do you tell yourself when the fear of not doing enough hits the hardest?
that you're just human, bro. You probably have done more than the average person. And that's okay. It's okay to think about myself, my well-being. You know, it's okay to focus about, I don't know, my bills.
Right?
If we're gonna keep it real, like a very human thing is the responsibilities that we have. So it's okay to focus on what I need to do first and then be able to give out to the community.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't even spill in your own self or invest in or fill your own cup, then you wouldn't have nothing to give.
Nothing.
So that's been very helpful, just aligning myself.
Have you had to learn the hard way in the beginning? Like, how did you, is that just from your upbringing? Where did you get that knowledge?
I'm like, if I can't even pour into myself,
Yeah.
I can't. Well, yeah, it's a, you can't work 24/7 and you can't give to your community 24/7. And if you already spoken enough and do more, you can just push people to do more, right? So I don't know. I think that when you try to have the change of the world in the palm of your hands, you're not gonna feel it hard.
Yeah.
You're gonna get exhausted, you're gonna be overstimulated, and you're gonna realize, damn, all this shit is a no-go for me.
Why are you talking about me? So if someone was to want to start some kind of advocacy, where would they start? What do you recommend?
Personally, I've just been blessed, right, that I did this work in college, and so I have these networks, and being able to understand the systems is so crucial. And just honestly, I started being in activism or being part of like social boards because I wanted a free trip to Austin. They had a little flyer that said free trip to Austin. I was like, sign me up. And I forgot the lobbying part. And that's when they started telling us the history that marginalized communities, especially queer communities, how it used to, the changes that queer folks have faced in Texas, specifically Houston. And I just felt aligned with that. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No one told me this shit.
Yeah.
Why didn't we learn this in school?
Mhm.
It's true.
Yes,
It's
it's so true.
Damn, what the fuck? My community has been going through this shit even more because you only have peripheral vision. Now with social media, we have access to other things, but it felt like that. So what I would tell others is definitely research your nonprofits. It's research the issue that you feel very aligned with. Something that they also taught us in school, right? If you do a project on something that you feel passionate about, it's going to be. So if you find, not saying that you got to advocate for all the issues that are happening, we're humans, right? But if you can just focus on one that you feel very aligned with, find it and not go on TikTok, find it, your community there and volunteer. Volunteering is free. Sharing a flyer is free. People are saying like, how can I participate? How can I be more vocal? Yes, we admire the folks that go to marches, but not everybody can. Not everybody has access to. Some people got to work 9 to 5s. And most of the people that we're advocating for work 9 to 5s.
Right.
So, yes, but it's more than just that. You can share a flyer, you can talk to your friends, you can educate them, you can volunteer, you can all those free things.
Yeah.
Free things.
There's so much information out there, especially nowadays, and so many tools. You said earlier that you have to learn the system in order to know kind of, how to impact it. How did you learn the system?
I really feel like being part of those social groups definitely tell you how like gerrymandering has affected the voting process. Bills being applied, how local government affects us more than federal,
Yeah.
And so things like that people have maybe misconceptions about have really helped. Now I'm not saying like I'm just knowing it all of government, but just knowing that the systems that were being placed are so we don't have a voice, So having access to that knowledge and learning it and knowing how it affects us can make a big difference.
Where do you get your knowledge? Because that we talked about earlier, where do you get your news? Yeah.
So I know people don't like this. I've been a fan of NPR for the longest time. Don't defund public radio.
I know.
Things like that. Also, if you don't know a policy, right? For example, the news is saying like ICE happening. What does that happen for folks that have DACA? Or how is that going to affect folks that have residency? I can guarantee you, if there's some nonprofits focuses on undocumented folks with those requirements or those labels or what they have in hand, they will explain what's happening to you. So I think having resources like that has been very, very helpful. and being like, where can I help? Where do I see it? Because also we're in a society that's clickbait.
Yes.
So
Using that fear
Yeah,
to drive more
rage bait,
engagement.
right?
Yes. You have to second guess information nowadays.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you don't just look at it in the news. You get it firsthand from the
Well, yeah,
community.
that's also right. So I have
Yeah.
a fellowship with Houston Community Media,
Mm,
and so they usually have a lot of professionals that will tell us about an issue, and then we talk about
okay.
it. Yeah,
So tell me more about that.
so Houston Community Media just showcases what issues the community could be facing, and so they usually have professionals in the area that could be lawyers, nonprofits, and so you're getting firsthand information and asking them like, how is this going to affect our community? And
I'm
they-
gonna look into that.
yeah, they've been really great.
Yeah.
That honestly, they've just been a really great source of information and getting it firsthand. Like that's priceless.
You said earlier about almost like joy being a revolutionary act. Why?
Why?
Yeah.
They don't want us to be happy. They don't, I forgot what town it was, but wasn't there like a very successful like black town at some point that was like economically prosperous and then
In Oklahoma, right?
yeah, and they got invaded?
Yes.
Simple.
Yeah,
They
Black
don't-
The Tulsa mass. Are you talking about
Yeah,
the Tulsa
yes.
massacre?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's like they don't
Yeah.
want us here. So of course that's a show of resistance because our existence is there, and also we're having a blast time.
I think that also plays into the where we talked about earlier, how it almost gets worse before it gets better. It's like when things feel like they're progressing and oh, you can relax and then all of a sudden it's like a wave hits of the opposition.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump into a lightning round.
Okay, let's go.
So a song that always gets you out of a funk.
Quiero bailar by Evie Queen.
Okay. What fear feels like in your body?
No sleep.
And then a recent moment that gave you an unexpected peace or joy.
Recent moment. This I didn't expect this.
Oh.
Well, with that, I was gonna open it up and do the high-low buffalo with
Okay,
you.
let's do it.
All right. So for you, what was the high of this experience, the low, and the unexpected?
The high of this experience is definitely being able to showcase, awareness and empowerment to other communities. I love it. I love that y'all are using your platforms for these dialogues that are really needed.
Is there a low that you can share?
Hello. I had to go to the rush.
You're like, oh, not yet, because it gets good, right? And we're like, I know. I'm glad you spoke up.
Sorry, guys, you're gonna have to wear Depends when you're on our show.
And then, what was your buffalo?
An unexpected. I don't know how deep we got into these conversations. Maybe.
That's me.
Yeah, fair. She will dive deep.
I know I'm shitty at just the surface level.
Yeah.
Like
You're like, let's go in.
I'm like, tell me about your child.
I want to know all of your secrets. Tell me your trauma.
But that's again why I created the podcast, because I just felt like I was getting snippets and I wasn't diving deep. And yeah. So thank you for
For sure.
for letting us.
Thank you for having me, truly.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a joy having you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Truly.
No, you're good. What's your next event?
Well, this is major huge. So I am going to be in Atlanta this Saturday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm filming for this social media channel called Cadillac Chronicles.
Okay.
So hopefully some great things come out of it. They feature 2 Chainz, like big artists too. So hopefully something can come out of that. And then after that episode, I'll be launching merch. So
What?
yeah.
Yay!
Oh my god! I never read your That's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my, if you have links to anything, like we will link, 'cause it'll take a few weeks for your episode to go live. So, but yeah, we'll
Yeah,
totally link
for
all
sure.
the things. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're just amazing. I love
You're just
Thank you for listening to Use Your Fear podcast.
Oh, great.
You can watch full episodes on YouTube, listen on all major podcast platforms, and support us on Patreon for additional cutting room floor footage. Follow us on all social media and visit our website at useyourfear.com to connect. Or if you've got a fear story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Please share and support so we can continue to have these meaningful conversations so others know they aren't alone.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.